So once again, good morning to everyone. Today we will discuss a bit about the fifth Sunday of Easter and to pray the readings for this coming Sunday. And the theme that we have is this: the new heavens and earth. It's taken from the second reading that we heard a while ago. As you can see, the picture is quite provocative, all right? It's not so peaceful to look at this because it looks like half of it is, half of that city is kind of like crumbled down, dry, desert-like. The other part of the city is what we kind of recognize as our world today, our cities. And behind that is a light that is coming, a new heaven and a new earth that God promises. So somehow this picture introduces us to the spirit of today's reflection and prayer. And as I was saying a while ago, especially in the Philippines, we have had quite an exercise of our being a people, what it means to be a people, a Filipino people. And I'm sure we're all quite tired. We're all quite tired. Physically, first of all, because we've been to rallies, we've been doing a lot of stuff, we've been talking to people. So we're physically tired, but also emotionally because we have been through these dialogues. I don't want to bring everything back in, okay? But we know that it's been emotional also for all of us. But also, I would like to remind all of us today, this has to be a spiritual experience as well. So it's not just physical, it's not just even emotional or even political. What is the spiritual reading of the events that have happened during this time? And in us, more importantly, in us, and what is the message of the Spirit for us as a church also? So what does God want to say? And that's very important. So meanwhile, we are processing ourselves. I will tell you also in our house, we are still in the process of, I don't know how you are. Maybe some of you are grieving. Some of you might be celebrating, but you are all welcome, whatever it is. Some of you might be confused or unsure of what to think or feel. The church is like a mother with a heart that is open for all. And what the mother invites for all her children is to continue walking together, to figure out what all this means. So, okay, we process ourselves, we rest physically, please do, because we need to, but we also process ourselves emotionally, but also we need to understand what is God's message spiritually for all of us in this. So this is where more or less I invite all of us today in our prayer to move forward with our experience. So new heavens and a new earth. But before we go into that, let's go to the spiritual side, the faith side. How has your Easter journey been so far? No, I mean, our journey has been beyond elections, right? Our journey has been beyond politics. Our journey has been about life, about Easter life, Christian life. For Easter means for 40 days, the risen Christ, Jesus, who is alive and active, was appearing to his disciples towards the ascension for 40 days. So if I could just bring you to recall Easter Sunday, if you remember, John and Peter running to the tomb to discover that it was empty, and they were confused. And then on the Divine Mercy Sunday, they were all behind locked doors in Jerusalem, and they were so afraid, and Jesus entered through their locked doors and appeared to them and said, "Peace be with you. Look at my wounds. Look at my side, my hands. Everything is happening within me. Don't worry, peace be with you." At Tiberias, he appeared for the third time, if you remember, and they were fishing again. They were going back. They were disappointed. I don't know if we can identify some of those feelings. They were disappointed and discouraged. They went back fishing, and Jesus appeared at sunrise. And he asked them, have you caught anything? Why don't you try this other way? Why don't you try to cast your net with the perspective of faith, and you will catch something again. And he had breakfast with them, and he renewed their relationship with him. Do you love me? That's it. Don't worry. Do you love me? That's the most important question. And last Sunday, Good Shepherd Sunday, I know my own. I know what's happening. Don't worry. I know. So important. Really, for me these days, I was hearing those words. I know. Okay, don't think that I don't know. Peace be with you. So this little question to start our prayer today, how has the risen Jesus been appearing to you in your own daily life? At home, at work, in society, in your relationships, because God is much bigger. God is a God of life, and he's still speaking to you and appearing to you in your daily life. All right, so let's start in that atmosphere of faith. Jesus is alive, and he has been appearing to you already. It's just to recognize, again, the signs, like Jesus on the beach, when the disciples didn't recognize him, and allow John, the community, John represents the church, telling us, it is the Lord. It is the Lord there. Listen to him, and let's focus on him. Okay, so let's take a look at the readings of the Sunday itself, this coming Sunday. Well, we heard them already. It's just a little summary. For the first reading, we see the apostles, Paul and Barnabas, going from city to city in order to form Christian communities and elders in every single city. So if you notice, you look at those two guys there, that's supposed to be Paul and Barnabas. They look like brigands, but anyway, maybe that's what people thought about them. Who are these two guys here? Imagine they're traveling. They in poverty, they had shipwrecks and all that kind of thing. How did they appear to the people? But then somehow there were people in every city who believed in them. They formed communities, and they formed elders to take over in the communities when they moved around. And this is something I like you to take note of. Their work in cities, Paul and Barnabas. Okay, let me just go through the other readings before we go deeper. In the second reading, we hear about a new city. Again, that word city, that is emerging from heaven. And this is a city where God dwells with his people for a new heaven and a new earth. Do you remember our reflection, heaven on earth? God continues to promise in our resurrected experience that he will build his city here on earth with us. And somehow it's connected with the cities, with the mission of Paul and Barnabas, building a new city in every city. Okay, and now let's look at the gospel. John recalls the legacy of Jesus, which is the new commandment to his disciples. What is the new commandment? Love one another as I have loved you. So what is new about this commandment? To love one another is not new, but as I have loved you. And later on, we'll see a very interesting detail of when Jesus said that. Love one another as I have loved you. The new commandment that will build this new city. Do you believe in that? Do you believe in that? What is going to build this new city is the exercise of all Christians of this new commandment. And this is the whole promise of God through the Apostle John, because Revelations comes from John as well. And what Paul and Barnabas to us are examples of apostles and Christians building this new city because they believed in the vision of God, in the promise of God. Okay, so more or less it's a kind of summary of all the readings of today. Today, I just like to focus on the second reading because that's where we can grasp a lot of the message of today. You can look at the image there also, from Revelations 21, 1-5. In the Catholic Church, we don't really make pictures of this because somehow we want to maintain the prayer aspect, our imagination. But this is taken from another church. I think it could help us. It could help us to have a little spark our imagination. It says here, "Then I, John, saw a new heaven and a new earth. I also saw the holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God." I like this image of coming down. What does it mean? It's a gift. It's not because of what we did or how good we are or how well we have done. It's a gift from God. It's coming. And John received this message from God. It is like a bride prepared or adorned for her husband at her best. No, I think that's what we see in the weddings. At the person's best, it's who's this person? I don't recognize this person. It's like, this is what God is preparing for us, something we have not seen or imagined. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold, God's dwelling is with the human race. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will always be with them as their God." What is the main characteristic of this city? God with them. God is with you in this city. And that is the most important thing, to experience God with us no matter what. The one who sat on the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." This is a very famous phrase, and it was quoted in The Passion of the Christ. I don't know if you have seen the movie, The Passion of the Christ. And if you haven't, or if you have, doesn't matter. But it's this part I just like to recall when Jesus said that in the movie. Somehow it's a movie, all right? So they put it into the image of when Jesus was picking up his cross, right? I mean, Jesus fell down, right? We know the Stations of the Cross. He fell down. And when he was picking up the cross, he told to Mother Mary, he told Mary, "Behold, I make all things new." So what is the context, the theological context of that scene? Persecution. Persecution, problems, difficulties. When John had this vision, the church was under persecution. And he received the promise from God, "Behold, I make all things new." This is the promise of God that we are invited to hold on to in the midst of no matter what we experience in our lives. Now, just going deeper into this promise, God promises a new city, the city of God. And there are some key words here that I would just like to highlight. The first key word is promise, of course, and then city, and then new. All right, promise, city, and new. So as I was saying a while ago, the New Jerusalem is God's promise of a new heaven and a new earth, and his promise to make all things new. So the first invitation is to believe in God's promise, to make an act of faith today. You know what, Lord? I don't know how I'm feeling now. I really don't understand my feelings now, but I believe in you. I choose to believe in your promise, Lord, and you will make all things new by your promise, by your word. What is this newness? The second key word, city. And as I was saying, to recall the importance of the cities for the mission of the apostles. I invite you all to think today, where do you live? Where do we all live? We are living in a city. Most of us are living in cities. And what is the special connotation of the city regarding our Christian mission? What are we called to as Christians to do in cities? And I think this is something important for us to ponder in our specific circumstances now. Our mission is not done. Not yet. We still have a mission, and it's in the city. Third, a new city that is ruled by Christ's new commandment. So what is this mission we have, this newness, is to build a city based on the new commandment of Jesus. Love one another as I have loved you. Why is it on the fifth Sunday of Easter, the church chooses this passage of the Last Supper? It's not a coincidence. It's not like, oh, last week was Good Shepherd Sunday. Next week, we don't know what to put there, no? So let's put this commandment out of the blue. No, 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 no. There's a very specific intention of the church for putting this passage there on the fifth Sunday of Easter. It's like as you journey through Easter, this is the core. This is the core of a life of a risen Christian. Easter is not finished, all right? Certain events have finished, all right, that's great, fine. But Easter is not finished. We have not finished the journey of Easter. And the church is reminding us, hey, I know in the journey of Christian life, things are not easy. But remember, this is the secret, the new commandment to build a new city, a new Jerusalem. So this week, we are invited to enter into the significance. What does it mean for us, this new commandment? How can we as Christians practice it in our circumstances? Whatever circumstances, the pandemic also, many things are still going on in our lives. All right, so this new city ruled by the new commandment of Christ. So now I go to the core of my reflection. It's going to be a bit challenging today, okay? I don't know how all of you feel. If you see the title here already, the word poly something. It can provoke in us different kinds of reactions, all right? And I want to warn you, the rest of my reflection is going to be challenging, all right? But it's going to be the message of Christ and the church for us. And I think it's so timely, really, for what we are experiencing as a country. The topic today is political love. Political love. Politics, according to Pope Francis, has become such a dirty word for us. And for good reasons. But as Christians, we are meant to believe in political love. Politics is part of life. And as Christians, we need to participate in politics, but with love. Okay, so just going through some technical things. Now, polis, as we know, polis is a Greek word for city. So in every city, in every polis, we need politics. So it's part of life. And if there is a significant meaning of Christian mission in the city, then politics is also important to us as Christians. So we are called as Christians to a new social and political love. All right, a new social and political love to build new cities. So as I said, we still have a mission. And sometimes we think about missions, just a little note. Sometimes we think about missions as let's go to the province, right? Let's go to these places where they don't know God. And somehow we start to realize, I think the place where people don't know God is where we are, in the cities. There's a huge mission awaiting us in the cities and in the places where we live. And there's a call there. But what is the social love? What is the political love that we can build this city with, that Jesus teaches us? And of course, we know the new commandment, love one another as I have loved you. That is what we need to ponder about politically and socially. All right. Sometimes we think about that in our families, our between spouses, between friends. But what about politically and socially? What does that mean? Love one another as I have loved you. No? How did Jesus love politically and socially? Have you ever thought of that? How did Jesus, how did he love politically? Was he involved in politics? Some people say, no, he didn't change the politics. Whoa, wait. Did he meet political people? And what did he teach his followers to do about politics in that sense? I invite you to think, when you think about politics, just take your mind away from politicians for a while, okay? Because sometimes we are just conditioned by that. And when we say politics, this person, that what they did, forget about all that for a while. Think about political love of Jesus. How did he love socially? His society among him. Was he indifferent? Did he just talk about God and forget about everything else? Or did he also care socially for people? Okay. So are you still with me? So this is the challenge for this morning. We're going to go a bit deeper. I invite you also to think about the implications of your faith, in this. So this is the main imagination. I invite you to think. Could you imagine a city based on the new political love of Jesus's new commandment? Can you imagine a new city built on this so-called political love of Jesus' commandment? This is a very deep question. So I hope you will not just say yes, no. But have you ever thought about it? What does it mean, Jesus' political love? How can we help ourselves to imagine such a possibility rather than just focus on the external things that have happened? But what is the world that I imagine and I could do something about, that we imagine that we could do something about? And that's what's important for us today. Elections is for a day. Elections is for a day. What we need to worry about is the next 6 years. It's like Karen Carpenter's song, no? We've only just begun. Whatever it is, no, it's a challenge or whatever. We've only just begun. No, white lace and promises. No, but it's what we're going to do with it today. We are not helpless. We are not helpless. We have something to do and we can do it. But we need to accompany Jesus's imagination of this new city based on his political love and his social love. All right, on the new commandment. So this morning, I would like to introduce you again to something that a letter that Pope Francis wrote to all of us to help us in our imagination. If you just read the book, it could be very heavy and dense and it's like full of philosophical concepts and stuff. But let us take up that book today. I just want to introduce it. It's called Brothers and Sisters All. Have you heard of it? Fratelli Tutti, in Italian. But this is about political love. So Pope Francis is trying to apply our Catholic faith into politics. I mean, how many documents do you know in the church that tell us this? Actually, there are, but how many have you heard of? And Pope Francis kind of summarizes it. What is political love for us as Christians? Jesus in the city, what does it look like? And he tries to help us to imagine that. How do we as Christians behave, or can we do in order to build the city we want? All right. So this is somehow just to help us in our imagination of political love. So every Christian is called to political love. It's not just reserved to some of the special people we know, all right? and we help them, which is good. No, we need to help our politicians. But all of us are called to political love. What does it mean? Let me just try to read this. 183 of this document or this letter. Social love makes it possible to advance towards a civilization of love, to which all of us can feel called, all of us. Charity, with its impulse to universality, meaning a charity that reaches out to everyone, is capable of building a new world. And this is a quotation from John Paul II. So he already spoke about it. Now, what does this want to say here? What Pope Francis is trying to tell us is the basis of political love is social love. I need to love society first before I can love politically. Once again, I hope you're not just focusing on the politicians now. I invite you to think of yourself. I need to love socially first before I can love politically as a Christian. Okay, that's what he's saying. And this, the sign of this social love, that it should reach everyone. It should always be expanding. And if I exercise this, and if we try to promote this exercise of social love amongst us, what John Paul II is saying is a new heaven and a new earth is possible. And we can do something about that new heaven and new earth in these years to come. You know, some people were quite, well, many perhaps, no, as I was listening, maybe myself also, we're quite discouraged by the results, right? It's like, you just feel helpless. You just feel helpless. So what can you do about it, right? And so this could take hold of us sometimes and say like, oh my goodness, I give up. You know, there's no hope. There's nothing we can do. So let's, I don't know, let's spread our wings and do something, right? Do you believe that it also depends on us? And maybe whether we like the results or not, it was not 100%. I mean, I like to look at election results because it shows it's not 100% for one person. When there are percentages, it means that something of what everyone believes in exists. Something of what everyone believes in exists. And if we focus on that and we say, hey, there's something here that is happening that is good in the midst of what we don't like or what we like. But if we recognize that and we try to build on that, it's because it could be awakening then for all of us. Hey, what is my part? What is my part then? That perhaps I could do a small part, or perhaps we could do, and to promote that part in everyone. Behold, I make all things new. And that is where we see the apostles Paul and Barnabas reaching out constantly with that love to spread what they believed. I say again, they were reaching out constantly in the cities to spread what they believed. What does it mean for us, this new love of Jesus? Will you continue to try to spread what you believe and to promote this good that you see? That is the key for a new heaven and a new earth. Now, once again, this is like a huge thing, right? It's like, oh my goodness, that's going to take like years. Precisely. That is what evangelization is all about. A work of years. But we are not talking about we doing it all. We are talking about, I'm sorry to use this word, no? We're talking about rallying, rallying Christians to do this work together. Hey, let's walk. And the best sign that we can have is that this reality is walking. It's walking towards the goal. And it's not going to be overnight. Everybody knows that. But the best thing is to see that we are walking more and more together. There's just a little saying here, no, that really inspired me. What does it mean for a Christian to live socially? to love socially and politically, this is one thing that definitely it is not. All right. If your religion, you know the guy in the background, right? Okay, he's a famous guy in the 1940s. If your religion requires that you hate someone, you need a new religion. If your religion requires that you hate someone, you need a new religion. If our way of loving politically and socially as a Christian causes us to hate someone, maybe that's not Christian anymore. Maybe the kind of political love and social love that Jesus invites us to could be quite different. That is opposite to hate, which is love. So I think this is also helps us to kind of like clarify the feelings inside of us. What are the feelings we carry inside of us after the elections? You know? So I find it so beautiful. Perhaps we're not going to figure everything out today in these guidelines or in this time of prayer. I invite you to really process, to ponder what's going on and what really is the Christian response in this time, socially and politically. Love one another as I have loved you. I'm just going to go through some key attitudes that are proposed by Pope Francis in this document that could be helpful for us, all right, in order to go through this understanding of political love. The first condition, if you like, is openness. Openness to God and to one another as a people, all right? Openness to God, of course, but also to one another as a people, not as you and me, but as one people. Oh my God. Oh my God. They are part of my people. Oh my God. I am part of your people because we are one people. So Pope Francis is challenging us something huge here, okay? He's saying, be open to consider yourself as one people. All right, there are different groups, but more than that, all right, there are different opinions. I think more than saying there are different groups, which could be a reality, all right? But I think it's easier to look forward as having different opinions. Openness to one another with different opinions as the way forward. But we are one people. I'll just read through these numbers here that could help. No, it says here, 160. The concept of people is in fact open-ended. You know, the problem is when we close ourselves in a certain concept of what it means to be a people. Or in this case, a Filipino people. Sometimes we already have a closed concept. It says it's an open concept because it's a living thing, a living and dynamic people. Culture keeps changing. A living and dynamic people, a people with a future, not just with a past, is one constantly open to a new synthesis through its ability to welcome differences. So what Pope Francis is saying is that every people needs to be open to a new synthesis of who they are. We cannot hold to something in the past or else we become polarized. If we keep holding on to the past because the past is interpreted. But if we don't see ourselves and give ourselves an opportunity to redefine who we are, it's going to be very hard. So the openness for a new synthesis through recognizing the differences as one. All right? And then the next number here, it says, we need to believe this, all right, in 157. Men and women are capable of coming up with shared goals. Well, sometimes we don't believe in this anymore. Men and women are capable of coming up with shared goals that transcend their differences and can thus engage in a community endeavor. So we can work together. We need to believe in that. And then it says here, 166, everything then depends on our ability to see the need for a change of heart, attitudes, and lifestyles. Not just my own, not just the other person, but all of us. We need to see a need of the change of heart, attitudes, and lifestyles of all of us if we consider ourselves one. What is a Christian community? It's the experiment of that. You are all guinea pigs with me, with us. We are experiments that it's possible to live together with differences and to work out shared goals. Where do we want to go together in order to transcend those differences? That is what Christian community is. A proof to the world that openness to one another as a people is possible. Is possible. And we try to spread that to others as well. So once again, it's a long-term effort, but it's something, a culture that we create amongst us, going beyond our differences, open to a new synthesis. All right, sorry, these are kind of like many things to abstract perhaps, no? And we need to think deeply about it. But this is the main question to pray about if I would summarize it. Jesus, how? How can I be open to see the other or the others as we and not just as me and you? Jesus, teach me how I can be open to see the other and the others as we and not me, just me and you. So I think all of us want it, but the question is how? How can we do that? I'm sure you all have ideas already, things that you are already doing, and to recover that sense of working humbly and optimistically. No, there's something we can do to make us as we. You know, talking about openness to the other, I've heard so many experiences about conversations that have changed opinions. Conversations that have changed opinions. Have you heard about the discernment circles that the church was promoting? There's some parishes that did the discernment circles and no names were mentioned, no names of candidates, only talking about values, what we would like for our future, how do we see ourselves as a Filipino people, what kind of leaders do we need? And opinions were changed. So there is hope in dialogue and openness as one when we are able to learn how to dialogue, to learn how to share our opinions and to let the opinion come out from the heart of each one, to really believe that we are capable. All men and women are capable to come out with an opinion that comes from God, that comes from values, that comes from a sense of unity and a desire for the future. Long process, but it's possible, and it has been proven. So that's what Pope Francis is also trying to tell us. So don't stop now. Don't stop what you've been doing. It's working, but we still have work to do. That's the point. Okay. So how do we do that? It begins with friendship as a people again. Come on, come on. Come on, it's done. We have played the sports, tennis, soccer, whatever, but you know, what we love is soccer. It's not that we love you or me. What we want is soccer to continue. Let's be friends, you know. So, number 180, recognizing that all people are our brothers and sisters and seeking forms of social friendship that include everyone. And this is the key word, to include everyone. It's not a utopia. It's not just our wishful thinking, but it demands a decisive commitment to devising effective means to this end. So it means decision, it means commitment, it means strategy. Any effort along these lines becomes a noble exercise of charity, political and social charity. Build bridges again. each of us is fully a person when we are part of a people. I find so beautiful this phrase. Each of us is fully a person when we are part of a people. We will not be happy when we separate ourselves from one another. We will only be fully developed or developing with our own ideals, even our own aspirations, when we are part of that people. Once again, please, if it comes to your mind, take away the politician for a moment, all right? I'm talking about people, the people. And then later on, we think about the other part of it, okay? So, there's this saying by Confucius, maybe I shared it before, it's beautiful. It's like politics is like a boat in the ocean. What determines whether the boat continues or is overturned depends on the ocean. And what is the ocean? The people. The people. So it's not the politics that determines the people. I mean, according to Confucius, all right? But it's the people who determine the politics. We choose the kind of politics or politicians we want. So where do we work? Not in the political level, externally. We need to work on the people level. And that is a bigger challenge, more challenging, more effort, but it's a long-term challenge that we have. Social friendships that include everyone. I hope I'm making sense here. And if you feel it's very challenging, then I think I'm making sense to you. All right. So it's about building friendships and building authentic dialogue. And this is our political challenge as Christians. Sorry, before I go to this slide, it's quite wordy. But this is the main number. I invite you to pray about in your own time about what's next, all right? Because hopefully you can find this document even as you Google it, Fratelli Tutti or Brothers and Sisters All. It's number 203, all right? Because it's full of wisdom. It says here, authentic social dialogue, all right, involves the ability to respect the other's point of view and to admit that it may include legitimate convictions and concerns. Oh my God, all right, oh my God. That it may include legitimate convictions and concerns. Based on their identity and experience, others have a contribution to make. So the fact that we have percentages in elections, sorry, I don't want to get too involved in this, but I just want to highlight the fact that we have percentages. It means that people have convictions. Yeah, it's not just two people who had percentages. Everybody had percentages. There are valid and legitimate convictions in each one. Do we believe that? No? Based on their identity and experience, all right? Because of their life experience, they chose what they want and value. And it is desirable that they should articulate their positions for the sake of a more fruitful public debate. So what Pope Francis is inviting us to do is, okay, we have these different groups. Would you try to understand and let the other person articulate what is behind their choice? Would you take time to try to understand that and to listen? Or is it just, you chose because of that? No, you're that one you chose because. He's saying, don't do that. Why not encourage them to articulate what are the values behind? And maybe you will figure out something there. Maybe. It is desirable that you articulate. Okay, then the next point, when individuals and groups are consistent in their thinking, defend their values and convictions, and develop their arguments, this surely benefits society. Okay, you might think that people are irrational. No, they chose irrationally, but hey, but if you help them to articulate it, like the discernment circles I was telling you about, yeah, explain, why do you think this is a good system? Why do you think this person is good? Why do you think this value is good? If you allow people to articulate, they'll figure out things themselves. That's what he's saying. No, it surely will benefit society. In a true spirit of dialogue, we grow in our ability to grasp the significance of what others say and do. What does it mean that they chose whoever they chose? Even if we cannot accept it as our own conviction, all right? So this is important. All right, I cannot accept what they have chosen, but why did they choose that? And this is a real challenge here. Let us not forget that differences are creative and they create tension, and in the resolution of tension lies humanity's progress. There is no other way for our society to progress except in facing the tensions and resolving them. Wow. Are you crazy, Pope Francis? Is that really the application of love one another as I have loved you? That new commandment? I think in the depths of our hearts, we know that it is. But maybe what comes as a challenge is, oh my goodness, how am I going to do that? How am I supposed to do that? From where you are, how do we dialogue? How do we allow this dialogue to continue and not to finish the process now? Didn't get what I want? That's it. No. Life continues as it was before. I mean, what difference was only the expression of opinions? Things are just the same as they were before the elections. Opinions were clearer now. Maybe, hopefully. And after that, let's keep the dialogue going so that we can really figure out what's underlying. Perhaps at this point, it's challenging to do that. As I said, we need to process ourselves also emotionally and physically. Maybe we're tired about all this in both dimensions. But if you have had your rest, I invite you to pray about this. What do you really want? How do you want things to move forward? Do you agree with Pope Francis? Do you think it's possible? And to pray about it. Because if you think it's possible, if something we can work out, I think it's something worth to project, no, in that sense. What kind of culture do we create by our political words and gestures as Christians? You know, can we fight in a friendly way? Can we fight in a friendly way? You know, looking at this experience of the past few weeks, how were your words? How were your gestures? What kind of culture would that create? Would that create a culture that can unite and to accept the differences and to move forward together? Or does it categorize and polarize? So it's very challenging, really. I feel it myself, you know, because our emotions get involved. And we should be passionate about it. I mean, that's one positive thing that I see, that people are passionate about it, about their future, if I hope we can say that. And we see that passion growing. But now, how can we channel that passion in order to map out good progress? Now you say, no, this is not up to the politicians. This is up to us also, all of us. This is the last, perhaps, no? Just a slide. Pope Francis is telling us we have a new political culture to build in the world. Can you see the guy he's with there? Can you see the guy who Pope Francis is with in that photograph? Everyone is worthy of dialogue. Everyone is worthy of dialogue. I have frequently called for the growth of a culture of encounter. You know, this is a time when we see the consistency of what Pope Francis is doing. I want a growth of a culture of encounter, capable of transcending our differences and divisions. And then he says, to speak of a culture of encounter means that we as a people should be passionate about what? Passionate about meeting others, seeking points of contact, building bridges, planning a project that includes everyone. That should be our Christian political passion. This becomes an aspiration and a style of life as political love as Christians. He says also, no, social peace demands hard work. It's really hard, no, and craftsmanship. It's an art. Even people who can be considered questionable, oh my God, even people who can be considered questionable on account of their errors have something to offer which must not be overlooked. What is important is to create processes of encounter, processes that build a people that can accept differences. And I like this phrase here, let us arm our children with the weapons of dialogue. The future of politics is not the present system alone. The future of politics is how do our children perceive it? How should we train them to fight this good fight? Give them the weapons to learn to dialogue in the midst of differences. Genuine social encounter calls for a dialogue that engages the culture shared by the majority of the population. What has been the majority? How can we engage with the culture of the majority and to try to understand what is underlying? Because we cannot ignore it. The majority is a majority. And even if it wasn't, I don't know, we still have to have this dynamism of trying to understand who are the majority and what do we all want as a people. So, all right. So I think I've given you like different elements from this document that could help us to pray about it, to process, and to try to understand what is the way forward from this. Let us just conclude with this. No, it's a culture of dialogue based on the new commandment. You can see the words I highlighted there, all right? When Judas had left them, and then he said, I give you a new commandment, love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples. This is how they will know that these are Christians. Even politically, these are Christians by the love that they have for one another. If you see the scene, the little scene there of the Last Supper, Judas was there. Judas was there, but that didn't stop Jesus from loving his political enemy. You can say that. That was his political enemy. He was betrayed politically by Judas, but that didn't stop him from loving. And that's how he built the new culture. You know, I love the song that we played in the beginning. More power to you. It's not a Catholic group, but you know, the lyrics are so beautiful. It says, and when they were all in one accord, the power of the Spirit poured, and they began to turn the world around. This small band of Christians in the midst of betrayal, denial, conflict, confusion, when they allowed themselves to be one and the Spirit to pour on them, do you see how big the church is today? From a small band of men and women who practice the new commandment. Love one another. Trust me, I will make all things new. So, I'll finish this. So no matter how you are after the elections, this could be you after the elections, or this could be you after the elections. It could be also, or this could be you after the elections. So whether you're grieving, whether you're celebrating, or whether you're still in the middle, confused, let us cultivate what Pope Francis is asking us, no? And just briefly, the highlights there. Cultivate kindness. What's the way forward here? Cultivate a culture of kindness no matter what. No, because that will build up the possible future for us. And second, don't stop seeking the truth of events. Don't stop propagating what really happened, because that will help us. So both ways, no? Kindness and truth, both are important. And if we walk forward with that, what Pope Francis is saying is, we will set the platform for the future that we want. All right, so I'll just leave you with these questions for reflection. What touched you the most in this talk and why? Maybe just one point that you feel more important. Why don't you spend time to talk with the Trinity, with the Father, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, or with Mother Mary about it? Second, I invite you to read again the passages slowly of Revelations and the New Commandment, all right? And to see what God or Jesus is trying to tell us there. And then to ask this question, would you continue to believe in God's promise of a heavenly city on earth, no matter what? I emphasize the no matter what. Would you continue to believe in God's promise of a heavenly city? And lastly, maybe a bit of a projection for the time to come. How would you exercise political love in post-election times? How would you exercise political love in post-election times? So it's not just a time during elections, but political love is more so in between elections. So how would you exercise a Christian political love today? All right, so I just leave you in silence and the prayer with these topics.